What is up there, guys? It's SCMothership checking in, going over Group C from the GSL Code S round of 32, featuring SK Telecom T1 Soulkey, CJ Entus Sora, Startail Pet, and I am Squirtle. Okay, so to start off the night, we begin with the ZVP between Soulkey and Sora on Heavy Rain. Soulkey goes 3 hatch before pool, while Sora expands with the Forge. Sora begins with an Oracle and takes a quick third base and begins making Void Ray. This first match quickly becomes a game of who can become the greediest, with Soulkey having over 70 drones by the 9-minute mark and begins his 4th with a Spire. Sora puts some pressure onto the 4th while he can and does kill it, but with Muses out, Sora pays hard for it. Soulkey defends the now all-in push with Roaches and Spines, and eventually Sora stabilizes for a bit. But maxed out on 4 bases with Swarm Hosts and Broodlords against the Strangled Toss, Soulkey is able to take game number 1. On Ultra Z Malter, not utilizing the massive breadth of this map, Soulkey conducts a 6 pool. Not getting vision right away, Soulkey sends his Lings to the wrong base. With so many Lings though and no Zealot out in time, Soulkey barges up the ramp and takes game number 2. Easy peasy. Now on to Pet vs Squirtle, a ZVP. So, starting off on Ultra Zim, this time we are treated to what you would expect, greedy play. Squirtle, after his first expand, gets a Stargate for an Oracle that is pretty ineffective, then heads up to Phoenixes and gets his 3rd. Pet pretty much ignores his enemy and gets a Hydra Den, while Squirtle adds on a 2nd Stargate for double Phoenix production. In what was possibly an ill-timed attack, Squirtle sacks a bunch of Zealots in a run-by to the 4th of Pet, but then is able to swoop in with his Phoenixes and pick off a group of Hydras. In the meantime, Pet counters with a group of Roaches, and without any large units to defend, Pet is able to take the base. Pet does a 2nd Hydralink Corruptor attack that limits the Colossus Void Ray count of Squirtle at the cost of a lot of army to Pet though, which allows Squirtle to take his 4th. Pet keeps being very aggressive on layer tech and trades large sums of army, soon with decreasing potency, and the limited option of Pet means he GG's out after many consecutive attacks. Daedalus Point is up now, and we see Squirtle begin the match with the Proxy Stargate, delayed Nexus, building 2 Oracles. The Oracles managed to get a ton of damage done, but a blunder by Squirtle lets a good number of Lings that let Pet get some kills of his own. Squirtle moves out soon after with his air units from earlier and a large Gateway army that proves to be too much to grant Squirtle his advancement to the playoff against Soulkey. Now for the winner's match, Squirtle vs Soulkey, to see who will be the first player to advance to the round of 16 from this group. Habitation Station is the map, and Soulkey expands to the gold, and Squirtle does a regular Forge Fast expand at his natural. Squirtle himself plays very greedy, taking a speedy 3rd at the gold, to which Soulkey responds to with his own 4th. It seems like Soulkey plays to just out-greed his opponent, and it is working. Both players just take the greed and run with it, teching up for a while. Soulkey heading up to Swarm Host, and Squirtle getting Colossus, then placing down double Stargate, gets his 4th too. Squirtle, trying to move out and assail the Swarm Host, loses his 4th and a nearly completed attack upgrade without making much ground. Squirtle keeps being forced onto the back foot due to the constant pressure of the Locust that keep leeching units. Squirtle though, with Tempest in a Mothership, defends the constant Zerg aggression and starts to take bases while denying mining and bases of Soulkey with Zealots. Soulkey and Squirtle dance for the longest time at Squirtle's southernmost base, but with some key fungals and ninja corruptors, Soulkey bleeds Squirtle dry and takes game number 1. Game number 2 on Heavy Rain, we see a Gateway expand out of Squirtle, and Soulkey gets his hatch first. Squirtle in the early stages forces Soulkey to take the further away bases with the pylon and follows up with the Twilight Council, maybe looking to take advantage of the unorthodox hatch. That gets scouted by Soulkey. With only slow Lings to begin and a bunch of queens, the defense looks shaky, and with Burrow and only 1 spine, just barely loses the base, but does defend quite well, and he takes a safer base as well. The game continues on, and we see again both players ascending their respective tech trees and taking bases for the late game. Soulkey sticks to a Swarm Host Roach Corruptor composition again, and Squirtle goes a bit Colossus heavy this game, adding in some extra Stalkers and no Stargate. Squirtle keeps being the aggressive one and tries to find a weak point of Soulkey. Taking a reckless engagement, he loses all of his Colossus blinks into Swarm Host, Broodlord, and Spines, and GG's out soon after, and Soulkey will move on to the round of 16 with some defensive play in game number 2. Now for the losers match, another ZVP between Pet and Sora. Game 1 begins with a bloody nose out of Sora. Pet opts for her fast Ling expand build by getting a pool gas and then pulling out of gas at 100 and taking the gold. Sora, after dealing with his issue with the tissue, takes the gold base and gets it cancelled by the many speedlings of Pet and puts Sora massively behind. Pet gets his standard 3 Zerg base as a follow-up, and Sora takes his natural with really no direction in this game and just heads up to Robo. With the Roach Hydra mid-game, Pet is able to push Sora back into his natural, to which Sora responds with the DT drop that Pet, very new to the stage and being broadcasted live, falls apart as DTs and a small forest ravage his bases. Sora has also taken his 3rd base before the aggression has earned himself an advantageous spot in the game, and with a killer push takes game number 1. Even after getting a strong position for himself in the beginning of game 1, Pet was just unable to finish it out. So now on Daedalus Point, he will have to kick it up a notch to advance on and play against Squirtle. Standard openers aside, Pet gets himself a pretty quick Roach form while faking a 3rd base. Sora at the same time gets a Stargate and goes straight for a Phoenix, which means Sora will not have enough to defend, and Pet is able to take game 2, which may be the start to his comeback. Now Altrazine, and we see your standard greedy openers from both players, but off 2 bases, Sora looks prepped to do a blink all in. With a few lings though, Pet manages to run through the wall of Sora, deals damage, and sees everything. So Sora goes DT again and instead decides to get his 3rd. The DTs are not the complete game changer that they were in game 1, and again with the layer Roach Hydra composition, Pet attacks the previously weakened 3rd and trades his army for the base. The rush distances on this map, however, means that Sora is still able to get a 4th up and running, and in a 1A scenario, almost repeating his first game in Altrazine, Pet keeps ramming his head into the Protoss player on layer tech, but somehow makes it work and will have to face the might of Squirtle now to see if he can move on to the round of 16. Okay, now it is up to the newcomer, Pet, to see if he can continue his turnaround and beat the GSL veteran, Squirtle. The first map is Polar Night, and Pet goes hatch first while Squirtle gateway expands. Pet gets a nice start, building a few extra lings that manage to delay Squirtle by killing low ground pylon, and he gets his 3rd. Squirtle goes for a Stargate Phoenix to follow up and then adds in a couple of extra gateways, looking like he might do a timing attack. Squirtle only makes 2 Phoenixes and then begins the assault on Pet's 3rd, and with not enough defenses made, Pet's 3rd barely gets eliminated. Pet though holds on and retakes his 3rd base and even cancels Squirtle's 1st attempt at expanding with pure Roach Hydra. Then on Squirtle's 2nd attempt breaks through Squirtle's Splashless army, taking a startling game number 1. Heavy Rain is Pet's chance to secure his round of 16 spot, and again we see him get an early gas for speed against Squirtle, who gets double gas and then does a 3-gate expand, making this game look like something out of 2011. Pet then gets a fast Roach Warren, gets layer, and adds on a Hydra Den off 2 bases, playing unlike any Zerg in the GSL as Squirtle moves out with a meaty gateway army. The push looks like it is going to be too much, and with just too few units for Pet, it is too much, and Squirtle takes game number 2. Now tied up, will we see the unknown Pet advance, or will Squirtle take game 3 on Daedalus Point? This time Pet does not get any sort of fast gas, and both get their bases before anything else. Squirtle heads up to Twilight and adds gateways, and with no speed out for Pet's lings, the imminent attack is too much for Pet, and Squirtle takes the final game and does advance to the round of 16. Well, that concludes Group C. Soulkey in first, going 2-0, and Squirtle in second with a 2-1. Means unfortunately, Pet and Sora will drop down to Code A. Well guys, this does it for me. I hope you enjoyed my synopsis of the group, and will continue to follow what I've got cooking up. Like always, SCMothership checking out. See ya.